Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Stalker25, and this is a little pre-intro before the intro. So me and my friend Andrew from over at AndyBPlays are going to be talking about all our thoughts and predictions for Pokemon Day, which is tomorrow at the time of recording this video. It's actually 2 days from now, but when you see it, it'll be tomorrow or after Pokemon Day. But yeah, this video was originally supposed to be somewhere between the realm of like 15 to 30 minutes at most. It ended up going to like 50 minutes. I'm not gonna edit out a lot of this stuff because honestly we're so big into Pokemon and we're such big fans of it. We love the franchise, both of us, and we just rambled and just had a good time and everything like that. So hopefully you guys enjoy, hopefully you guys stick through the whole video, and yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, it's 50 minutes but we get through a lot of it, so maybe I'll have timestamps or something, but hopefully you guys enjoy, and I'll, you know, let you get into the video. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Stalker25, and today I am joined with my friend Andrew from AndyBPlays. And tomorrow is Pokemon Day, and we are talking about all our predictions and everything like that we got for Pokemon Day 2023. So, Andrew, what do you got for your most wanted or like craziest pick, I guess, for what we're gonna see Monday or tomorrow?
Okay, so obviously with the launch of Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games on the NSO back on February 8th, and if you haven't seen the trailer for the Pokemon Day celebration where they said they were going to get 20 to 25 minutes, they kind of hinted by playing the original Red, Blue, and Yellow theme song, like the music from the game, and they showed original sprites. So I know you're asking for like kind of crazier predictions, but I really don't have much. But I think we're definitely getting Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games, at least Game Boy. But if I had to pick something just out there that I would love to see,
that's your realistic, but this is outlandish.
So outlandish, I'm gonna have to go with like a Pokemon Legends Johto style game, whether it's Celebi or they dive deeper into like Lugia and Ho-Oh, like something along those lines. Okay. Because Pokemon Legends Arceus, you know, everyone knows that game broke the mold. It was phenomenal. It was great. It was fantastic. It set up everything for Scarlet and Violet. So if we could see something like that, but for, you know, the majority of Pokemon players' favorite generation, let's go. You know what I mean? Or even the Let's Go games.
Don't say those words. Don't say those words, those cursed words.
But yeah, something I would love to see something with Gen 2. And I think Pokemon Legends did, you know, pretty great considering it was a standalone game, and I think it sold like 14 million, didn't it?
I think it did pretty well. It's kind of unfortunate with that game, just its release window, because like it buried BDSP, which kind of deserved to be buried, but then it didn't get any follow-up support besides the one small little update, and then it just kind of got forgotten about, like probably come May, I don't know, May, June, July of last year. It just, nobody remembered it, and then it got buried with Scarlet and Violet, which didn't really deserve to bury it, but it you know, it got buried. So I think it did well enough. It seems like it's like there's no middle ground with people that just like the game. You either absolutely despise it or you love it. There's like no like in between with the Legends game for some weird reason. So
yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's weird, right? Like there is no one that's just like, yeah, the game was okay. Yeah. It's either, yeah, like you said, I love this or I hate this.
Yeah. So, but yeah, okay. So your realistic is the GBA games coming. Your outlandish is a Legends or Johto something. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now that we've kind of given yours, my most wanted is probably same thing. Instead of the outlandish, my most wanted is a Legends or Johto something, since we haven't had Johto on any console since the DS, which was probably like somewhere between 2007 and 2010. Yeah. Somewhere in there. So over 10 years. It's been a long time. With the eShop closing on the DS and them probably wanting to axe bank anyways and not deal with it anymore, I would assume you should probably get a Johto game into the current generation console and so you don't have to worry about people having to transfer up. And then my most outlandish, I mean, it's on the bingo sheet that I have here, but I'm gonna say probably the one of the two most outlandish I'll say is either gonna be the National Dex coming back in Scarlet and Violet, which they hate and they won't give us a good reason for why it isn't allowed anymore, or some sort of Gen 5 remake, or maybe a Legends game or something. But
I don't know. Like you talk about these Gen 5 remakes. I think it's too early.
Well,
because like
yeah, a little bit. The remakes are usually like 2 didn't get remade until Gen 4, 3 didn't get remade until Gen 6, 4 didn't get remade till Gen 8, and now 5 should get remade Gen 10, but Gen 10 probably is 3 years away, like 2025. So Black and White or Black and White 2 remakes aren't 2026. Like, that's a long time still for those.
Right.
But I mean, it is what it is. We'll see. So all right, I got my little bingo sheet here. We're gonna kind of be blowing up images and talking about it a little bit more, but like this is just what I set up, so I'll probably have it on like maybe Twitter or somewhere after the video goes out. But we'll be kind of like discussing like things in groups. So like the first little prediction group we got here is the Scarlet and Violet DLC. This is what I probably see or not DLC, Scarlet and Violet in general. This is what I probably see them maybe leading or closing the direct with, if I had to guess. Would be something Scarlet and Violet related, unless this is like the middle bulk of the direct.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this is probably gonna be somewhere in the middle, because I think they're gonna lead it off with the anime.
Yeah, I could see them discussing the anime. I didn't even put that on the bingo sheet.
Because we have, we already know that the new anime is starting here soon. Ash is retired, and by the time the new one starts, it's 2 brand new characters.
Yep.
And they've slowly on Twitter, both Cerebi and the Pokemon Company and stuff like that, they've been tweeting out new details. Like, we got a new character announcement, and his character, this new character, I should have had it up before we started doing this, has a Pikachu, and people are mad about that. So I could see them kind of giving more details about the show, and what their plans are going forward. Maybe an actual, do we have a release date for the new series yet?
April, I think. I
think
like early April.
Sounds about right.
The last, the last episode of They Aim to Be a Pokemon Master with Ash, I'm so sad. I've been watching the Japanese releases of this, and the last episode comes out March 24th, which is a day before my birthday. So I get
happy birthday, Pokemon!
I get to cry the day before my birthday of probably how they end Ash's story, most likely, which is going to be just so ridiculously sad. But yeah, I could see them opening with the anime or like touching on it within the first couple minutes. I could also see them just opening right out the gate with like a celebration video, kind of like talking about everything, and then like maybe they just go ham, and they just go right into the GBA games or the Game Boy Color, Game Boy games, and just they announce right then and there, Red and Blue's coming out, and it's it's coming out like today type thing. Red and Blue and Yellow launch today, Gold, Silver, and Crystal launch maybe in like a couple weeks or like a month, or today as well. But I could see them being like a couple months, and then them being like, oh, and by the way, we're also going to be dropping later in the year Fire Red and Leaf Green and Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, or something like that.
That's my question, okay? Because we know that there are 6 Game Boy games, right? Game Boy Color and Game Boy. So normally Nintendo, they will do batches of games at once. Yeah. And come on, there's no way they're going to have Game Boy Color, Game Boy and Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance on the NSO and not include Pokemon. There was a whole reason why they didn't show Pokemon when they showed the NSO announcement, is because they knew Pokemon Day was right on the corner. And we know it's coming. There's just no way that's not. It just doesn't make sense for it not to be here, especially with Stadium coming to the Nintendo 64. We know that's coming one day. We've already had that announced. But my thing is, how are they going to do it? Like, you were kind of bringing up, like, maybe they just shadow drop Red, Blue, and Yellow that day, which would make 100% sense. But do they also shadow drop Fire Red, Leaf Green, you think, on the Game Boy Advance? Because it's very rare that when Nintendo updates the NSO, they don't just do one console.
Yeah.
They will do two consoles, and it's normally grouped together. So when they do Nintendo 64, there's always Sega Genesis games as well. Except for this last time when they did GoldenEye on February 8th. That was just because it was GoldenEye. But it also came out on Xbox, you know, with Rare Replay and stuff like that. So it was still grouped together. But I've been having this inner monologue with myself. We're getting Red, Blue, Yellow. But are we also going to get, are they going to do Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald? Or are we going to get Fire, Red, Leaf, Green first? Like, there's just, I don't know how they're going to do the Game Boy Advance stuff. And then, do they wait a month for Gold, Silver, Crystal? Or they do the 2-month thing, like you were just saying? They're so weird when it comes to the NSO. There's no pattern to it.
Now, so I guess I was gonna start Scarlet and Violet, but we will talk, I guess, the Game Boy games first, because I could see this being the actual lead to the Direct. Now, do you think it's because it's Pokemon? Do you think there's a chance, or how would you like it released? Do you think there's a chance that these aren't put into the Nintendo Switch Online Game Boy emulator thing, and they just do standalone releases like the 3DS, and they're like $10 a piece?
No, they're not charging you for this. This is the NSO. This is going to be one of their biggest driving points for the NSO. You know what I mean? They're trying to push subscriptions. They have gone away from, you know, kind of like old retro games being re-released on their consoles. So I don't see them charging anything for these games. As much as
what would you prefer? What would you prefer out of the two? Would you rather
I'm gonna get
have
hate for this? I want it on the NSO. I don't think we need to pay for them again.
See, I'm on the opposite spectrum. I would rather have them as individual releases for like $10, $5 a piece, something like that. Because like, I haven't tried it, but do you need to be connected to the internet to be playing any of the games in those apps?
No.
No? Okay.
Once you've downloaded the app to your console, you can take it anywhere you go. As long as you're paying for the expansion pass or whatever it's called, you can play them anywhere you want, because I will play them at work all the time. I haven't played Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games, but I've played 64 games. Like, I just recently ran through Ocarina of Time, and I played it at work. So if you're at home and you're on your Wi-Fi, you know, and you have it downloaded, you have it anywhere you go as well.
Okay. So, I guess with that being said, like, I wouldn't be as mad if the Game Boy games got released in the Nintendo Switch Online, like, bundle. But I think the Advance games, I'd be a little bit more annoyed, since you need the online expansion pass, which is an extra $50. Because I only have Switch Online. I don't have expansion pass. I'm also in a family bundle with like 8 other people that my friend pays for everything. We just throw him money, which we did the math. It takes it from like $35 a year to like $80 a year. So it's like all 8 people, just each person chips $10 in, and then you pay for it. But like, I still would rather not have the Game Boy Advance ones bound to like that subscription. Because if your subscription ever goes out, then you lose it. Also, being locked behind a $50 extra paywall, with these being like behind that, if you want to play on, like, let's say you want to play a new save file instead of deleting yours, and you want to play on a new Switch account that doesn't have Switch Online, then you have to pay another $50 to just play one game, play out multiple games. It seems a little kind of grimy to me.
So if you have the Nintendo 64 and stuff like that, and like the NSO on your main Switch, so let's say you have 2 Switches and you have your main Switch, and your main account has, you know, you've paid for the Nintendo Switch Online, any account that is on that main Switch has access to...
Okay.
Yeah, because I've tested it before, because my friend and I, we were sharing accounts. Like, if you sign in, you know, to your friend's account on here, you have access to all other downloads. Well, there was a time where I didn't have the NSO, but he did. So I signed into his account on my Switch, downloaded it, and was able to play it.
Okay. So maybe I just test it theoretically the other day.
Yeah, you could theoretically just, you know, create a brand new account on your Switch and load it up. I mean, I know you have 2 Switches too, because I don't know if you saw this or not. I won't go too much into it, but AndyBPlays made a video about how he's thinking that there's going to be you're going to be able to trade within these games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
So
saw his video talking about it.
I'm curious to see how they're going to do that. I mean, obviously, I think there has to be trading and stuff like that and battling because
Yeah.
every other game has online functionality. You can play Star Fox 64 online with your friends. So if they made that a possibility, but for some reason you couldn't trade and battle your friends in Game Boy Pokemon Red and Blue and Yellow, then there's something severely wrong.
They would find a way to do it because the 3DS games were able to do it.
Exactly. And here's my thought process on this too. This kind of leads into some other things that you have on your bingo card. But I think this is going to be your chance to get Pokemon from Red and Blue all the way to Scarlet and Violet.
Well, yeah. Well, you could do it now with the 3DS ones because the 3DS could transfer to Bank and then Bank could go up to Home. So you can take a Red and Blue Charizard all the way up to Scarlet and Violet if you wanted to. This is just kind of streamlining it and making it easier, which I could see all these games having trade and battle capabilities within their games. I could also see them making either another app or finding a way for Home just to access these games, and then you could just pry Pokemon out of these. They might not be able to ever return to these games once they leave. If you take your starter out of Red, your Charizard let's say, and you bring it into Home, it can't go back to Red. It's probably locked out of Red. As soon as anything leaves one of these games, I don't see them being able to return from to Home. That is, you never know if they find a way to allow it, but I feel like that would just maybe cause some sort of issue, but they might be able to do it, but I don't know. It probably wouldn't work because these games all have some of them are pre-abilities, some of them are pre-physical special split, things like that, so you never know how weird these games might be.
Oh, for sure. I know. That's what I was kind of thinking about too, because there's so much new things in modern day Pokemon that they just straight up didn't have back then.
Yeah, but yeah. So I mean, I could see all of these being revealed. I don't know how I see them going about releasing them though. What bundle, what's released that day. Pokemon and Game Freak and Nintendo are known for doing their whole reveals during the events and being it's available later today type thing. So
yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. They love their shadow drops, which I'm not mad about.
Yeah, so I definitely see Gen 1, but to kind of hark back on that previous thing of what you said, would they release Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald with it, or would it be Fire Red and Leaf Green if they did a GBA one too? I don't know. What do you think they double release Kanto? Release both variations of Kanto at the same time?
I don't. I think we're gonna see if I had it my way, we would get all of the Game Boy and Game Boy Color games day one. It's gonna get shadow dropped, and then they're gonna say, and later this month, next month, because it's technically gonna be March, because February is only 28 days. I really, really think we're gonna get Fire Red, Leaf Green. I 100%, because we haven't had Fire Red and Leaf Green in forever. They weren't available ever besides when they first came out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Every other besides Emerald, everything else has kind of essentially been remade in a way. Crystal got combined in.
But I mean, they weren't even available on the Wii U and the 3DS.
Yeah, no, they.
So that's why I think they're gonna put them out there, because I made a video on this and I posted it earlier this week, whatever. And I talked about how the NSO is really great at showing a new generation of Nintendo players older retro games. And so there's a whole entire generation of kids that have never played Fire Red and Leaf Green. Oh, yeah. Unless they had an older brother or sister or emulation and stuff like that. So this will be the first time these games are going to be widely available for a brand new audience. Yep. So I really, really think, why not? Yeah. What's the point? Why not? Just put them on there.
Yeah. So besides those, though, besides the GBA games, I could see them touching on Stadium at the same time. We already have confirmation of Stadium and Stadium 2 coming to Switch Online. But I've never actually played either of these games. I just want to point that out there. So I'm not 100%
That's crazy.
familiar. I own Stadium, but I've only played it like twice because I bought it like, I don't know, randomly because I never had an N64 and I picked one up at like a pawn shop like probably like 10 years ago now almost.
Right.
And I bought Stadium at the same time or around the same time just to try it. Played like 2 games of it and then like that was it. And I was like, this game's kind of dated. I'm good. I'm not gonna touch it right now. But I could see them also with the reveal of Red, Blue, and Yellow. Then maybe being like, I don't know if Stadium's out yet, but maybe they'll be like, hey, Stadium is gonna drop later this month, like next month, or like the next 2 months. And when Stadium drops, we're also gonna find a way for you to have maybe this transfer app that connects to Stadium but can connect to Red and Blue, where you could take Pokemon from Red and Blue into the transfer app into Stadium, and then from back to the Stadium to the transfer app back to the Red and Blue. But then you could also use maybe Pokemon Home to connect to this transfer app, that then the transfer app could like rip those Pokemon out and bring them to Home, and then they just can't go back to the transfer app type thing. Maybe that's how Home connects to these games. But I could see them revealing Stadium 1 connects to the Gen 1 games, and then the Johto games, since they were the ones that connected to Stadium 2, correct?
Yeah. So basically what you like you kind of hit it, you know, the nail on the head. Basically, like, you put the cartridge into the back of the N64 controller using a transfer pack, and you could then have access to your Pokemon, like your team and stuff like that, on Stadium. Like if you're using Red, Blue, and Yellow, you could play Stadium 1 and then Gold, Silver, Crystal on Stadium 2. But it was also kind of like the precursor to the Game Boy Advance player on the GameCube, because then you could play all the Game Boy and Game Boy Color games on your TV through Stadium and Stadium 2. It was so awesome.
I think I heard you could do that. Yeah.
Yes, it was so cool. And then obviously just having those Pokemon in that game and being able to battle your friend on like your big screen TV at the time, you know, that was so revolutionary. Like, I'll never forget those days growing up and playing that.
Isn't there like a harder story mode in these games too that you kind of need your trained Pokemon from like Red and Blue to do as well? Like you can't really use like the rental Pokemon because they just won't cut it.
I can't really comment on that because I don't have a lot of experience playing like the story of Stadium, because there isn't really a story. You're just battling through the Elite Four, and like you get the badges. I heard that it was like that. I could imagine, because the games did get really tough. Like you have to like know about battling and stuff like that. It's not just like you just go in there. Like nowadays, like, you know, with like Sword and Shield and even Scarlet and Violet in a sense, where you could just kind of steamroll the game with, you know, any Pokemon you have. Yeah. Like you actually had to have a little bit of knowledge and stuff like that. So they can definitely be very difficult.
Especially with the new candy and whatnot, you could just get a Pokemon to 100 and it just listens to you. So, but okay, well, I think GBA and these, I think these are pretty almost like guaranteed. I think at least the Gen 1, I think at least Gen 1 games for the Game Boy are 100% shadow dropping that day. I don't think there's no doubt in my mind that those aren't dropping. So I guess then after we talk about like the Gen 1, I think this is where we go to Scarlet and Violet. And I think they announce probably first they either announce one or two things first. They either like kind of hint at and talk about the DLC really quick. Maybe that just is a little video where they don't really talk about much and they say coming later this year. But I think the one thing that we're going to see is some sort of new event. We just had the Pikachu with the Mightiest Mark event, which that thing was kind of a jerk, and it was not very easy to beat for a Pikachu. But I could see them doing one of two things. Either Rillaboom, or one of, if not both of the Decidueye, since we haven't had a Grass starter yet. We've had 2 Fire and 1 Water already. Or I could see them doing a Legendary event, since all the Legendaries are basically tradable into the game through Home, which isn't available yet. But I could see them doing like Mewtwo, just going big right off the back with it, because he was, I think, the first Legendary raid event and one of the only Legendary raid events that Sword and Shield had.
Yeah.
So I could see one of these two things happening, since the Pikachu event ends like an hour after Pokemon Days Presents happens. And I could see them just announcing this, because like we are still supposed to get the Scarlet and Violet update which is like the bug fix and balance patch
Yeah,
type thing,
I saw that.
which is supposed to drop this month. So that's going to be something that they talk about at the presents as well. And it's probably just
sure.
going to shadow drop like that day. It's going to drop that
Yeah.
day. Whether or not they release this raid event with it, that's another story. They could just release the raid event that just goes throughout the week instead of like just on the weekend. I could see them doing something like that, especially if it's Mewtwo and it's a hard raid. They just give you the whole week instead of a weekend to like mess around with it.
Yeah. I kind of agree with you. I bet we'll wake up that morning and we'll see an update available for Scarlet and Violet on our Switches and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know about Mewtwo. I think they might wait to do those tradable legendaries until after we have the ability to use Home with Scarlet and Violet. I could see Gorilla Boom or Decidueye. That makes a lot of sense. I haven't really thought too much about it. I've kind of fallen off doing a lot of these raids. Not gonna lie to you. You and I talked a little bit about that on Discord. We were kind of messaging back and forth. I don't care anymore. Like I put so much into those games and did a couple Wi-Fi battles, but I'm just so like, all right, I need something new and something fresh, and these raids just aren't cutting it. So I'm hoping. I think you're probably about to roll into this, but some DLC, man. I need something to bring me back.
That is the next thing prediction that I got is something DLC related. Whether it's they're gonna announce it, whether that be another date that they're gonna be like, hey, we're gonna talk about this like in like 2 months from now or something like that. I've seen other people's videos like A Drive and other people where they've theorized that we could see the DLC instead of like thinking that the DLC is gonna come out like, you know, maybe like later in like November or like October or maybe like August, September or something like that, like later. Some people are theorizing we could see the DLC as early as like April, May, June type thing. And it's just like, I don't know if I'd want that with how like half-baked the actual game was. If they were to just throw out the DLC that's equally as half-baked, that like, if you've been working on the DLC this whole time, why wasn't Scarlet and Violet more polished? Because Scarlet and Violet are kind of like every AAA game nowadays where it's like they needed almost like an extra year in the oven.
Yeah.
Like, and as much as I think the games are very fun, like the performance and everything like that, like their solution to stopping like the kicking and crashing for the update that's coming out is to take away more Pokemon spawns in that area. Less NPCs, less Pokemon. So it's like they don't know how to optimize for the Switch. Clearly Game Freak does not. And it's if the DLC is like an early DLC, like some of those creators are saying, I would be very skeptical at that point and would not like that. I would rather have the DLC come out like at the earliest in July, if that is a one DLC and not like an expansion pass like Sword and Shield had with 2 DLCs. So, but I could see them talking about this. But yeah, go ahead. What's your
we definitely have to get something, you know, like I said, because I think there's a lot of people like myself that are kind of just falling off a little bit with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. You know, like these raids, they're only satisfying a handful of us, stuff like that. You know, like I know you're going back and you're collecting them, stuff like that. But I don't know. And so we got 2 DLC packs for Scarlet and Violet, or Sword and Shield, right?
And that was spread out Crown Tundra.
Correct. And that was spread out a couple of months, or was that throughout the next year?
I want to say it was the year after. Isle of Armor came out somewhere between, I want to say it was like June and August. Maybe it was in July. I can't remember exactly. And then Crown Tundra was like November, like the typical Pokemon release date. Crown Tundra was then. Now, Crown Tundra was a lot bigger of a DLC and expansion than Isle of Armor was. Isle of Armor was really underwhelming and relatively small in terms of the 2, like especially story-wise. So maybe they do the same thing and we get like a small DLC and then like a bigger one later, like in November as like the Pokemon title of the year. But we could also be seeing like just one DLC and then like another Ilka remake this year. Like what they did with BDSP. You never know.
Right. This is what I would ideally like to see. Maybe do a $20 or even $40 DLC, and it's essentially not a third game, but you can kind of continue on maybe from your Scarlet and Violet, you know, like game and stuff like that. But we know that there's more things
Yeah.
involved with Scarlet Violet. There's so many unanswered questions
Yep.
from this story. We know there's a third, like somewhat like I was reading about it a couple days ago on Twitter. Like it's like some like giant like Ouroboros style like snake Earth or like
It's
planet.
like a turtle. It's like a
Yeah,
turtle
exactly.
type thing.
Right.
we're
So we
seeing.
know there's something else that's out there, you know, and we still don't have we have a lot of unanswered questions and everything like that. So there's going to be story DLC that's coming. Now, I don't really see them going the route of making a third game with today's climate. There's always just DLC now.
Yeah.
You know, we saw that with Sword and Shield, where they just gave us 2 DLCs, and one was, like you said, smaller. The other one was bigger. It was more storyline and stuff like that. So maybe they do that again, but I would rather just it be one big pack of just a bunch of extra stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like another like 20 hours, like maybe not a full story, like 20 hours, maybe like another like 8 to 10 hours worth of story content. I don't know, just something to bring us back to that world. Because if they don't, and it's just more DLC like we got in the last one, and then like there's just more just raids, I might be done with Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah.
I might just, it's been sitting on my shelf, collecting dust. It might just continue to do that. I mean, they really, really need to do something big here. But they've been setting it up. You know, like we just said, there's something else there. So give that to us.
I would almost, realistically, if they were to give us 2 DLCs, I want one DLC that's focused on the crater, that like, because like the crater probably is deeper. Maybe the 3rd legendary is down there, so we get like DLC 1, which is like focused around the 3rd legendary and the past and future forms of the Virizion, like Swords of Justice trio, and then the Suicune legendary beast trio. We get both of those. Now, I could also see them dropping both of those, or like some other Pokemon that comes out with the update tomorrow, since the update is supposed to have, or Monday. I could see them releasing a Pokemon, because like when they did the direct for Isle of Armor and the expansion pass, they did Galarian Slowpoke that day, came out or whatever. When you bought the pack, Galarian Slowpoke was available that day. So I could see them being like, expansion pass releases today, you could purchase it. If you purchase it today, these Pokemon are obtainable in your game, whether that be Virizion and Suicune, or whether that be some new Paldean form, or some Pokemon. Some sort of Pokemon comes out on Pokemon Day with the update. Some new Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like, that's guaranteed. The expansion pass probably releases that day for purchase as well. Update comes out that day, and then we get maybe DLC 1, which is all solely focused on the crater, and then we get DLC 2, which is focused on that upper right chunk of the map, which is like a new area that you could go to, which a lot of people are theorizing it could be like Southern Kalos, since Kalos is so close to this region, which it could be, and maybe that's the leading into the next portion, which not 100% on topic to this, but like it could lead into maybe the return of the National Dex and like Mega Evolution, maybe, if it's Kalos related. Like, that could be another thing that, this is a little thing in the bingo sheet, and a very wanted thing with me is the National Dex coming back, but maybe that's what it kind of leads into a little bit, and they're like, hey, you know, we realize that we're going on, what, is it 23 years of Pokemon now? Or something like that, or not 25. So, or 25 or 26, something like that. Like, maybe they're like, hey, you know what, we screwed up with Gen 8 and Gen 9, not doing the National Dex anymore. We realize you guys all love every Pokemon equally for some of you guys, and here, have this. Like, this is going to be in the DLC. We're going to bring back the rest of the however many, like, 600 Pokemon that aren't in the game.
Yeah.
So, who knows? But I guess that's it for Scarlet Violet. These next few are probably going to be like really fast fly-throughs.
Right.
These are 2 that I think they're going to talk about. Pokemon Bank is the eShop's closing, so Pokemon Bank you can't buy anymore. If you want Poke Transporter, you need a Pokemon Bank subscription to download that. So the only way to add funds is through like the website or a eShop card, and you have to like link your Nintendo account with your game or DS account to like buy it. So it's gonna be a messy here soon. You won't be able to trade up any Pokemon from Game Boy Advance through 3DS to Pokemon Bank to the Switch then through Pokemon Home. So I could see them just announcing on Pokemon Day, like reiterating and talking about Bank and just being like, it's free. It's going to be free, like, because they've already said it's going to be free, but maybe they just announce, hey, it's free early and it's free today, and you could use it as much as you want up until the eShop closes, and then after that you could continue to use it until maybe we eventually get every Game Boy Advance to 3DS on the Switch. Because I could see them easily at some point getting literally all the DS and 3DS games on the Switch in the form of an emulator. Like,
yep, one day.
Not that hard, I don't think. And then the other thing I could see them talking about is Pokemon Home getting the update and support for Scarlet and Violet. I could also see them touching on support for Home with like the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games as well, them connecting to Home. So these are just two little quick things that I think are probably a given. Maybe not Bank, but I could see Home definitely being talked about. And then here's the other one that I think they hit on is all the mobile game and mobile adjacent games.
Oh yeah.
Sleep being the biggest one here that like maybe they don't really talk about it because like it's kind of dead in the water, I think, and there's like I don't think anyone really cared about what it was gonna be. Like I think that was the one that they were just like, hey look, here's just all these mobile games we're gonna talk about, but like Sleep is just one I don't think they talk about. Unite easily, we're gonna talk about it really quick. They just hinted at Zacian coming to the game, and there's all these other rumored Pokemon, so I think they at least talk about Unite for like a couple minutes or like 30 seconds at least. Pokemon Go, they just finished Hoenn Week or something like that, or something Hoenn related. We have some Galar Pokemon in, but I don't think we have the Galar starters in, so I could see them being like, hey, here's the Galar starters, or here's a couple Paldean Pokemon sprinkled in an update. So there's going to be some sort of new big update or event for Go that they're going to talk about soon. Probably something Cafe Mix related. And then again, they'll probably just touch on Masters and be like, here's an event or something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know they're going to talk about those. They always do.
They'll get at least probably like a couple minutes. This Direct also is rumored to be like 20 to 25 minutes long, which is one of the biggest Directs that we've ever had by them. So this is another bit on here. This is kind of like other game category. I could see them doing. Now we talked about the Game Boy like mainline games coming from the DS, or not the DS, the GBA. I could also see them releasing Mystery Dungeon. What was it? Red and Blue Rescue Team from the Game Boy Advance. I could see, even though the Switch game from like 3 years ago was those remade, I think I could see them just porting those as well to Switch Online. I could see them also talking about it. I could also see a new Mystery Dungeon just made in general, or like a remake of one of the DS era games as well.
Yeah, definitely the DS era. I could see them diving into that.
I could see something along those lines. So some sort of new Mystery Dungeon. I think it's also potentially leaked that there might be a new Mystery Dungeon.
That's been the rumors, yeah.
Here's another one, Detective Pikachu 2. The movie's still being made. Apparently that was confirmed recently that it's still in production. So I could see a 2 for this happening on the Switch. Maybe even a port of Detective Pikachu 1 to the Switch.
I was going to say, Western audiences never got Detective Pikachu, so I would love to actually play that game. So just port the DS one, or the 3DS one, to the Switch. Call it a day. Move on. Be like, hey, here's Detective Pikachu right alongside the new movie, which I didn't even know was still a thing. I completely forgot about that movie.
Yeah. And then, now it's not on here, and I have this on here, which is just random new Pokemon game. This could be Pokken Tournament 2, since we could have that. I completely forgot about the game. It's not on the bingo sheet, but it could be. We could also see like a new Pokemon Ranger, maybe, or like a Ranger port or something along those lines. Or there's like always other things like Pokemon Pinball and those other games that we could see being released, or ports or new versions of. So I could see them doing something along these lines. What's up?
What if, now this is just a hypothetical, throwing it out there. What if we get a new Pokemon trading card game? Because there's a sequel that never came out in the West.
Could get that.
What if we got a new Pokemon trading card game on the Switch? Because we know Pokemon trading card game is coming. to the NSO. So how amazing would it be if we got a new one? That would be dope.
Could happen. It's in the line of random new Pokemon games, so
Exactly.
if something like that comes out, it hits the bingo sheet. Though we already talked about these Game Boy Advance games, probably a given for all of them, if not at least Gen 1 and maybe Gen 2. Speaking of Gen 2, this is what I don't want to see is this variation of Gen 2, but we are due for a Gen 2. Now, I don't know if I spoke about it in the video already, but when we seen the remakes with the trends that we've seen, Gen 1 got remade in Gen 3, doesn't really make sense. Gen 2 got remade in Gen 4. Okay, so we're going to kind of see a pattern here. 3 got remade in Gen 6, so we're seeing that the generation gets remade in the one that's double it. Gen 4 got remade in Gen 8, so we've seen that pattern. Well, Gen 1 got remade again in Gen 8, or Gen 7. So Gen 7 started the remake of Gen 1. So would that mean Gen 2 is supposed to get a remake in Gen 9? It could.
Listen, man.
I don't know if there's a new pattern that could start there, but maybe.
It's like anytime I try to think that I know what's going on when it comes to Nintendo or Pokemon, they throw me for a loop.
Yep.
So I'm not even gonna try to sit there and be like, well, if you look at how they did this, this, and this, it's like I don't even know what to expect at this point. How well did the Let's Go franchise do?
I think it did fairly decently. Now, I would not be opposed to a Let's Go remake, or not a Let's Go variation remake of Johto, as long as the games were actually going to have the ability to not force you into motion control capture. If I could just use a controller and play the game, instead of having to only not get motion control in handheld mode, I would greatly appreciate just being like, okay, let me just plug in my Pro Controller and I'll play it with this.
Right.
Like,
so as of September 2022, so it's still a couple months ago, Let's Go Pikachu and Pokemon Let's Go Eevee sold 14.8 million units. So that's a success.
It's not bad. It's probably not as good as some other things, but like it's still not bad. It's probably like middle ground, or like maybe low or high middle ground.
Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl sold 14.9.
Okay. Well, those are good games. But
I'm just saying that did pretty good for them being basically Pokemon Go on the Switch.
Yeah.
So I could definitely see them doing something again,
mm-hmm.
But I don't know if it would be Let's Go Johto, which I mean that sounds cool. Pokemon Let's Go Johto. It's all like rhymes. I don't know. I definitely think.
What do you call it? Do you call it Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee 2? Do you call it Let's Go Pichu and Eevee? Do you call it Let's Go Pichu and Togepi? Let's Go Pichu and Meryl, Togepi and Meryl, Umbreon and Espeon, Ho-Oh and Lugia? Like, what do you call it?
No, it would. They picked Pikachu and Eevee because those are the mascots of Pokemon. Yeah, it's simple. So for a sequel to the game, I could see them literally just calling it Pokemon Let's Go. They could make a brand new game. They could do a whole new region. Anything they really want to do. They've already established that the games sell well, almost 15 million since its launch, and it's Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go is still really big. Even though I don't know that many people that play it, I know that their numbers are still really big because I see on Twitter all the time. People are still going in. They're still putting out new updates and events and all these different things. So it's still very popular. Yep. But, I mean, I have to imagine we're coming to the end of the Switch lifespan here. They could just be holding out for the next console in 2024 or 2025. We might not see another Pokemon game on the Nintendo Switch besides these NSO games. So I don't know.
I mean, they could launch the next console with a Johto game like they did with Kanto launching for the Switch. Let's go.
Exactly.
Let's Go launched on the Switch as the primary game. I mean, what bigger of a game than releasing like a Heart Gold Soul Silver remaster on there, or like some sort of Johto remaster? But I wouldn't want Let's Go personally, just because Let's Go means we're bound to just Kanto and Johto Pokemon in the game. I would much rather have this being Heart Gold and Soul Silver, because at least we have all of Gen 1 through 4 that is playable in here. One of these two is my preferred. Last little ones that we got on the bingo sheet, Legend Celebi. We've already kind of talked about Legends. This would be my most outlandish pick and want for this is a Legends Johto game, just because I could see them doing it and I would love to have it.
It makes sense. It just
Yeah.
does. I mean, given everything about Johto, it's very tied into um mythology and olden days and stuff like that. So
Yep. And if you were to pick a 3 set of starters, my personal pick is the one I did on my little fake cover here. I'd rather have
Okay.
Froakie, Torchic, and Bulbasaur. If they didn't do Bulbasaur, I'd rather them maybe do I don't know.
Trico. I could see Trico.
Well, I don't see Trico because it's with Torchic. If they didn't do Torchic,
true.
then I could see Trico. I could see Trico, Froakie, and maybe for the fire one they do Chimchar or Tapig. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe Litten. I don't know.
3 of the worst fire starters you just named.
I like Chimchar and Litten. And then last little thing on the bingo sheet and last little outlandish thing, even though it probably should be remade with Gen 10 in 2026, I would like to see, or I could potentially see them talking about something black and white. Either it's black and white remake, black and white 2 remake, remaster, made by Ilka, since they seem to be probably jamming Ilka on the remakes and remasters now, because BDSP didn't look bad entirely. It just kind of was riddled with bugs. If they could fix that problem, I could see Ilka being the secondary company that they just keep throwing remakes at and maybe ports and be like, hey, remake and port this to the Switch and we'll just get everything from DS era and beyond and 3DS just on the Switch.
Yeah.
So I could see them maybe doing one of these two, breaking their formula, or I don't have a cover for it here. I could also see some sort of Legends Kyurem or Legends Genesect or some sort of, not Legends Genesect, that doesn't really make sense, but some sort of Legends Unova game happening where it's maybe the original dragon. Oh
yeah, there's a lot of stuff that they could do. There's so much Pokemon stuff that we could see, but yeah, it's and if you do if you actually do remake Unova Gen 5, do you just combine White 1 and 2 and Black 1 and 2?
See, that's something I've been questioning, because there is a 3 to 5 year time gap between the games. They're different sequels.
Yeah.
It is a proper sequel to the game, something Pokemon never does.
Yeah.
So, that's a very questionable thing. I personally would rather them just release both games remade standalone. If I had to pick one of the two to get remastered, I'd rather have Black 2 and White 2.
Yeah, they're better.
They were the better game, so I'd rather have that one personally. Unless you just did an Unova remake that was almost like a Black and White 3, and it just kind of you just did a third game in the group and just did Black and White 3, and I don't know how you do it. Maybe you do a combination of both stories, and maybe you somehow you merge them both. I mean, you could even merge the games into one game. It'd be a little harder. You essentially play through Black and White 1, and then maybe you just somehow transition over in the Black and White 2 and just go into that story afterwards, and maybe your entire Pokemon box of Pokemon from Black and White 1 just gets locked away until you beat Black and White 2, and then they're just all there.
Right.
I don't know how you do it. It's very complicated for these set of games. I feel like this is going to be the hardest one to remaster and remake, because no other game has had the problem of a sequel. It's just the random third game like Emerald or Platinum, which for Emerald's case, they just kind of merged its bit of story into the end of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which did great with the Delta episode. And then with Platinum, they just said, screw you, we don't care about your existence with BDSP, and they just didn't care. So, I guess they kind of took little aspects of the Platinum story and put it in Arceus in a way with Giratina, but Legends Arceus is different. It deserves its own category. But yeah, I could see something maybe talked about with Gen 5. I don't know. But that's really it though. That's all we got on the bingo sheet, was all those things. I think I hit everything with the big pop-ups, so I could see a majority of this stuff being talked about. Now, granted, who knows what they decide to do with their 20 to 25 minutes. half of that time for just one of these titles and only talk about 3 things. So you
Yeah.
never know. But that's gonna do it for us here. Thank you so much for joining me, Andrew. Hopefully we get an actual, good direct tomorrow, and hopefully everybody gets everything that they want. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys haven't done so already, Andrew's channel will be linked in the description below. If you are interested or haven't done so already, go over to his channel if you haven't been over there and give him some views. He's a Nintendo addict. You will enjoy him. If you like all things Nintendo, you will enjoy his channel.
Nintendo enthusiast is what I
Yes.
call myself.
I call you a madman.
Yeah, most people do. But yeah, I plan on my next video for next week is going to be all about what we see tomorrow. So that's what I'm going to be talking about next week. So yeah, if you guys want to come on over to AndyBPlays on YouTube, youtube.com/AndyBPlays, twitter.com/AndyBPlays, come hang out. Let's talk. Obviously, we're going to be there talking all about those new Pokemon games or whatever they show.
Yep, and I might be doing maybe a video on Pokemon Day, kind of discussing it as well, my thoughts of everything that they announced. It just depends. Other than that, later in the week, you'll see a video where I break down and tier list all the new Pokemon from Scarlet and Violet, and I can tell you what I hate and what I like about them for the designs. So if you want to get crazy in the comments, that's your video. If you haven't done so already, would always appreciate like and subscribing the channel. It does help me a lot. Do greatly appreciate it. Got the other channel and Twitter if you want to go follow or subscribe to any of them. But that's going to be it for us today, and we will see you guys all next time. Bye.
Bye.